Welcome into Sickem365.com. I'm your host, Grayson Grundhoefer. Today, I'm here with Ashley Hodge, and we are about to wrap up our breakdown of the Baylor men's basketball team. We have one more prospect to talk about, and it's a 2025 commit, the most recent addition to the Baylor roster. Italian wing, Maikcol Perez. He played last season at Orange, won Bassano in Rome, Italy. He's played with the Italian national team for a while now in the under-17 competitions, in the Euro under-16 as well. He's played a lot of basketball, a lot of international basketball, and was a big-time pickup for the Bears at the wing position. He's 6'8", and again, a 2025 prospect, ranked as the number 41 prospect in the nation, according to On3. So kind of a late riser here, a guy that you mentioned on the premium side quite a bit, Ashley, just as a guy who, just to be on the lookout for. You're dropping hints and people are trying to figure out who it was. But Perez chose Baylor over, reportedly, I think it was Cincinnati and Nebraska were two of the ones that were kind of hot and heavy on him for a while. Nebraska, I think, thought they were going to get him, but it ends up being that Maikcol Perez commits to the Bears and gives Baylor another extension to Europe, another guy from out of the United States. So another nice pickup for the Bears and very intriguing prospect, I would say, as well.
Yeah, and I think there's probably those are the offers and interest that was reported, but I think there was a lot more high major teams after him late in the process. You know, the Baylor fit makes sense. They've had so much success with international guys. I think the comps there to Jeremy Sochan are pretty good. He is not the greatest shooter. That's a weakness in his game, but he does everything else really well. Like I wouldn't say he's that bouncy. Like he's more of a guy that's going to just, beat you with skill. Like he's got really good pace. He's got a strong body. He's 6'8", 7-foot wingspan, more of a point forward like Jeremy Sochan. I mean, he can really handle the ball well. He's a guy that can switch, on defense, moves his feet very well. He's got great footwork. He's a great passer. He's a guy that can score at the rim. He can get to the foul line quite a bit. You mentioned the FIBA competition. He was one of the 5 voted to the All-Star team in the FIBA competition. So he played really well in those FIBA games against, the best, players his age, like AJ DeMonsa, Boozer, was there as well for the U.S. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of upside here. It's why he's highly ranked and maybe a little bit underranked. Sometimes these international guys, don't go a little bit under the radar. I saw he was rated the number 2 prospect in Italy next to Sarr, the guy that Kansas and Duke is after. He's on the draft boards for next year. He's projected somewhere in the late first round, early second round. So he may be a guy that not this year, but next year he may, hopefully he is a guy that's a multi-year player for Baylor. But I think he's got a lot of upside. And so we went from expecting one high school contributor, and I think we have other high school players coming, but most likely redshirt guys and Mayo and Iguodala. But I think this Maikcol Perez is going to play. I mean, I think he's going to be in the top 8, top 9 guys. And I expect he'll be, pushing for a lot of minutes, and he'll be a very valuable piece of this team. Versatile. We got a lot of versatility. The wings, in my opinion, are just insane. With him, Tunde, Yesufu, Cameron Carr. I guess you qualify Cameron Carr as a wing. Maybe he's going to be with the guards. But then you got Dan Skillings Jr. You got Michael Ratai, who I think will be considered a wing. Who am I leaving out? I mean, obviously Iguodala will be a wing, but those 4 guys are really going to get heavy minutes, and I think there's going to be a lot of exciting things to come from those that nucleus there.
Real quick, Sawyer Robertson has something to remind you about.
Want the latest information about your favorite team? Try out Sickem 365 premium content the next 3 months for just $5 by clicking the link below.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for me with this pickup when you're looking at a guy like Perez is you want to see the versatility, which he has. He can play the 3 or the 4. I know he says he can play all 5 positions. I don't know that I quite see that on film. Like, I don't know if he's a Yegor Denim. I don't know that he's that level. Maybe he is, but I think I view him more of a Jeremy Sochan, which is more like a physical wing. Like Sochan was not going to be your lead guard at the college level and shouldn't have been at the pro level, even though the Spurs tried that for a year. But I think he does have some traits there. When you look at, he passes well, he rebounds well, he scores in the paint well, even for a guy that doesn't have elite athleticism. At least he doesn't show it on film very much from a vertical standpoint. He's pretty fast. And I do think, like, when he goes to the rim, he does have pretty good horizontal bursts to finish at the rim, but he just doesn't explode vertically, which is kind of weird, and maybe something that we'll see more of, because Sochan, obviously, he dunked everything. He still tries to dunk everything, those two-handed slams. But I do like Perez because of the Swiss Army knife, and I do think that if you weren't going to get a point guard, I think this is the area I would have addressed, just getting more size and more options to potentially play the 4 or the 3, because, you know, you look at the way the roster is constructed, and I see Maikcol retire, and then I'm basically just projecting that Skillings, Perez, and Tunde could play the 3 or the 4, but it's very much a projection, right? Because retire is a different kind of athlete when it comes to his size and wingspan a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is probably a little bit of green and gold colored glasses, but when I look at this roster and I think about, okay, end of the shot clock, who are some guys that you feel comfortable having the ball in your hands? I would say J.J. White, Obi Agbem for sure. Tunde Yesufu, I think, is a guy that I would want the ball in his hands at the end of a shot clock. Dan Skillings Jr., I would definitely say him. And, you know, I would say Michael Perez would be one of those guys as well. And then Maikcol retire.
Yeah.
You know, so if you have 6 guys that can create at the end of a shot clock and get a good look. And once again, I'm a broken record, but I think this team could be the best offensive rebounding team in the country. They've got incredible offensive rebounders, the best offensive rebounder statistically, and Jocelyn Bodo last year. And, you know, just getting a shot up, you know, at the end of shot clocks is going to be critical, because you might have a 43% chance of getting that rebound, getting that, you know, extending that possession and leading to either an easy putback, an open 3, a dunk. I mean, you know, those are all good outcomes, and Baylor's been really good on the offensive glass over the years. So getting guys that can create and get a quality shot off are important. And I think we have, you know, 5 or 6 guys that fit that bill. And Perez is one of those. He's a creator like Sochan was, and I expect a lot of the same qualities. But to your point, not as athletic, so probably not a guy that the NBA is going to go, wow, you know, because Sochan was a bouncy athlete, and I don't think Perez has that, and that may be to Baylor's benefit. We may get an extra year or 2 out of him because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hoping for at least 2 years, and really, I mean, that's what you were hoping for with Sochan too.
Right.
Just got very unlucky, I would say, with that. Unfortunately, I mean, he ends up being a top 10 pick, but I think in general, this is a great addition because you get multiple years. I would also say that, you know, Perez has done a lot of impressive things when you look at the international landscape and you look at kind of the direct competition against the Americans as well this past year. You know, FIBA Under-17 World Cup, you mentioned him being in the top 5 guys. I mean, he averaged 14.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists per game. He went to the championship game with the Italian team, and they got destroyed by Team USA, as pretty much everyone did. But he had 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists in that game against the best high school prospects in the United States. I mean, he went in there and he played really well. And yeah, they got blown out, but he did his thing. And I think that's really intriguing. He's played against, older, more seasoned guys than I think a lot of the high school prospects in the United States have at this point in their careers. And I think that's really important when you're talking about development. And it was something that gave Sochan an edge too, playing in, European basketball. And so I do think that this is a great addition. I think, again, it fills a need, and there's some upside here, because if he is more of a playmaker, like if he's somewhere in between Sochan and, say, Yegor Denham, because that's just the name that comes to mind, if he's somewhere in between there, that is a really, really interesting playmaker, and a guy that if you get him for 2 years, that second year could be like extremely impressive and extremely impactful for your team.
Yeah, I love, I think as you look back, you're always trying to compare every team to that national championship team. That's natural for Baylor fans to do that. The thing that, obviously there were so many things that team did well, incredible offensively, 3 all-American caliber defensive players. I think Butler was in that conversation, certainly vital, and Mitchell for sure were in that conversation for the best defenders in the country. But the thing that just set that team apart was competitive fire. They all had competitive fire. They just wanted so badly to beat you and destroy your will, particularly Davion at the point. So I think what I see from this team is I see a lot of that. I thought I saw that from the 2022 team as well. I was really impressed with Akinjo. I was impressed with Sochan in that area. Flagler just had that steady consistency. But Jonathan before the injury definitely had that. So I think that, this is what I love about this team as you look at them on paper is guys like Tunde. You mentioned, Perez playing well on a big stage against Team USA. Tunde playing really well against Team USA in the global, Nike Elite Games. Skillings is a competitor. That Ratai is a competitor. Obi Agbem, even though they were a losing team, he was a really high competitor. And we got a lot of guys coming from winning teams, JJ White and Bodo. List could go on and on of guys that really compete at a high level. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most is the grit and competitive fire that I think this team will have. And that's a team you can get behind. Even if the offense is rough at times, if they play with effort, if they defend, if they rebound, if they fly around and give you all they got, then fans will be excited to cheer for this team and root for them all year long.
And because of all the unknowns, I think the competition in practice and the fact that all these spots are up for grabs is going to be extremely beneficial. Baylor's had too many years where it's just been these 5 guys are already locked in. Or that's great at times, but when you're trying to kind of get back to the culture that you wanted to establish, it's very nice to have just this direct, just roll the ball out there, say, hey, best 5 are playing, and you got 9 guys for those 5 spots. That is quite the luxury.
Well, we talked about this last year. Baylor went top heavy on NIL. It's well documented. Roach and Edgecombe and Omier. Edgecombe and Omier delivered. Roach did not. But you might even say, would it have been better had they spread that money out among 8, 9, 10 guys? So I think that's what they're doing this year, and let the cream rise to the top. You're going to have injuries. You hope you don't have injuries, but we've already had one guy break an arm in an ATV accident. So, but that there's going to be issues with, guys. Either not performing as you expected or an occasional injury or something's happened during the year. But then, let the cream rise to the top. The guys that are durable, the guys that, really want to give it everything they got, the guys that are consistent, they're the ones that are going to gobble the minutes up. And when you have, 10 good options to choose from rather than 7 good options to choose from, it makes a big difference.
Exactly. So that's it, Ashley. We've gone through the entire men's basketball roster. We've done it, gone through all the names, even talked about the walk-ons for a little bit as well. I know you're ready for Europe, and I'm sure we'll have all kinds of conversations about the team when they go there this summer and play and get the first glimpse of kind of what they're going to look like heading into next year, even missing some pieces. But we'll be back at some point. We'll talk some more Baylor men's basketball for sure. But this is it for the breakdowns. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Sikkim365.com.
Join Sikkim 365 Premium on a $1 for 1 month trial to read our experts' notes and insights. Know about high school commits, off-season transfers, coaching staff changes, and so much more before the rest. Also, download the Sikkim 365 app on your iPhone today to get instant notifications of breaking news, read up on the latest inside info, easily interact with other Baylor fans on our forums, and get alerts for anything published by your favorite staff members.